Welcome to the podcast, People More Interesting Than Me. I'm your host, Michael Strumsky, where every week I host a new guest with unique professions, personal adversity, or even maybe a strong opinion or two. And if you haven't hit the 5 stars review on Apple Podcasts, please hit it now before you forget. Running a podcast is a surprising amount of work, and more reviews converts into a wider range of future guests. Our guest today, Lisa Castillo Tizabi, a dedicated social worker in the DC public school system. With unwavering compassion and a commitment to social justice, Lisa empowers students and families, bridging the gap for a brighter future. Join us as we delve into the inspiring journey and the transformative role of social work in education. Enjoy. So sorry, I missed the part if you said you actually commute to DC.
Yeah, so I go in every day, but it's super close. It's right at the border of Maryland and DC.
Okay. So, I mean,
Like right at the line, kind of.
isn't that close to like Georgetown?
No,
Like from where you are?
no, I'm like right by downtown Silver Spring off Georgia.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
where the Shark used to be. Because Discovery's not there anymore, right?
No, they moved. The shark
Okay.
might be. The shark might be there, but Discovery's not there.
Where did you go to college? I saw on your list. Where?
Yeah, I went to Nova Southeastern. It was a small private school in Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, Fort Lauderdale. That sounds fun.
It was so fun. When I sent you my resume, I looked over it, obviously. I was thinking, everyone's like, where'd you go to school? And I have to, explain because it's small and
Don't you
not
hate
so
that?
known. Yeah, it's
Don't you
really
hate that?
annoying.
Because it turns like it's like a 2-second response into like a 20-second response. Like, why'd you go there? Is it specific for something?
Yeah. And so I was actually reflecting, like, if I could do it over again, would I go there? And was it worth it? Because I was in debt afterwards. But I think I would. It was such a great experience. I like really came out of my shell.
So you're currently a social worker for the DC public school system, but like we were talking about with you going to college, was that specific? Like you went there specifically for that?
No. So I was able to convince my parents to send me to this school because they had a dual physician. Like I wanted to be a physician assistant. And so they had this program where they would accept you to undergrad and the grad program at the same time. So it was a guaranteed spot. And so I convinced my parents, like, this is a great program. Like, this is what I want to do. And they were like, okay. I mean, no, they were not that excited. I mean, they were, but they knew it was so expensive. And so, but I was able to make it. And then after the first year, I was like, yeah, no, I don't like this. I can't do it.
I bet your parents didn't care at that point. I mean, you were already in school and they were just happy, just like every other parent. No, they weren't happy.
They were like, okay, girl, like, you got to hurry it up. And so I graduated a semester early because it was just so expensive. My parents actually tried to get me to transfer. And I looked at Maryland. I went to UMBC. I literally cried on the tour at UMBC. And I can't do this. I can't be here.
The sun isn't out like 24/7.
Yeah. I like went to their gym and I was like, oh God, no. And so I was like, I told them, I'll graduate early if you just let me go back. So I did.
And through several hundred steps, so at some point you decided to be, is it human resource, not human development? What's your actual major?
Yeah. So I majored in psychology and I did a minor in substance abuse. I was super into I was not into addiction, but I was interested in addiction. And, back then intervention was the show, at least for me in my life, it was. And so I thought it was the coolest thing. And I wanted to work with people with addiction. And then So I'm the first one to go to college in my family. So I really had to like figure this out on my own. So one day I went to a professor like, hey, this is what I want to do. Like, how do I get here? And so he said, well, you have to go to grad school and you have to, go to school to be a social worker. So that's how I ended up. I did my undergrad in psych and substance abuse studies, and then I knew I had to go to grad school.
So what made you go towards, like, what was the linchpin that made you think social work? Like, finally, like, I'll just go to social work.
So I've always been into the helping profession since a young age, since I can remember. Growing up, I don't know if you would consider police officer a helping profession, but kind of. So I wanted to, at first, I was little, I wanted to be a police officer. And then my brother when he was born, he was in the hospital. He has hemophilia, but we didn't know it at that time. And so we were in the hospital for, a longer period. And then being in the hospital setting, I thought it was so cool. So then I thought, okay, I'll be, a physician's assistant. And that didn't work out. And then I thought nursing, and then that didn't work out. It was the same type of work. And then I was minoring in psychology at the time, so I just made my minor into my major.
Okay, makes sense. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, describe a little bit about your job currently and what your daily, I guess, life in the DC school system as a social worker looks like.
Yeah, so I'm there. So I meet with kids. What's different about me, sometimes like people will call me a school counselor and kind of irritate. It's under my skin because I'm not. The difference is I have a specific caseload. I have my handful of kids that are the students that I work with day to day.
Hmm.
And it's about maybe 15 of them, and they all have IEPs. And
Hmm.
on their IEP, so they receive specialized instruction to address academic deficits. And then they also have behavior issues. And it could mean external, like cursing you out and throwing chairs and stuff, or it can also mean internal depressive or anxiety. But more so now with elementary school kids, I see that external where they're angry, where they're running. And so I work with them to learn to cope with, I mean, they're little though, but I help them try and like figure out ways to cope with their behavior and deal with the trauma because they're not just, no kid is just a bad kid, just misbehavior. And then I work to support teachers to deal with their behavior, with the kids' behavior.
And what age range are you working with primarily?
I work with 3rd through 5th grade.
Okay.
When I got into it, though, I was working with middle school when I first started.
Mm-hmm.
At the same school. It used to be a education campus. So we did pre-K 3 to 8th grade, and I oversaw the 8th grade or
Okay.
the middle school.
The funny thing is, when I was growing up, like before middle school, not that I watch TV or much media, but it's always portrayed that high school is like the worst time in a kid's life. And I always thought, in my opinion, middle school was like the worst time. Like high school was fine, in my opinion, but middle school, it was just like, you've got puberty going on. You've got like, I don't know, just all these different things, completely different from elementary school. And then high school is kind of like, I don't know, you see the light at the end of the tunnel, whereas
Yeah.
middle school is like just like sporadic, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. When I got into the schools, I wanted to work with elementary, and then I didn't get it. But I got middle school, and I was like, all right, I'll give this a try and see how it goes. And I loved it. I loved it because the kids are, they think they're teenagers, but they're still kids, and you can still kind of talk to them, and they're still mature. And it's such a beautiful, like messy age, but they've got so much going on. It's crazy to think how some kids really have so much going on in their lives, and they're just so little.
Yeah. And let me think what my train of thought was. Do you ever you deal just primarily at the school? Do you ever have to do like the cliche home visits or anything like that?
Um, I think it used to be more of a norm or expected before COVID. Like if a kid wasn't in school for several days, I would I would go and look for them at their home and, knock on the doors. Sometimes at the beginning of the year, we would go to their in DC. They have these like a meet and greet in the kids' house. It's a thing that they do. And we used to do that, but not so much anymore.
Because I know obviously you deal with the IEP after it happens, but I know with IEP, like usually you meet in the home, you analyze the kid, and then I know there's like 3 or 4 meetings after that just to kind of like set milestones.
Yeah.
But like obviously this, like when people think social work, they think like it's not Aaron Brockovich. I'm thinking of some like Julia Roberts movie where like the person comes to the house. Which one?
Precious, taking the babies away.
I haven't seen that one, but it's like the cliche thing where they call social services, they take the kids away. That's what you hear when or that's what you think when or at least for me, you think social work.
Used to.
You used to.
I used to. So I wasn't the one taking the kids away. I was working with the kids once they were taken away.
Yeah. So and do you have to deal with that, like where kids kind of how do I phrase this? So in DC schools, do you ever have to deal with the same kid? Let's say he gets taken away from his parents. I would imagine the foster program would place them somewhere else in the district. Is that usually the case, or?
No, thankfully not. DC has a law where the kid has to remain, not has to, but the parent has the authority to say where, even when they're removed, where they want their child to go to school. And so a lot of the time, to not create so much chaos in the child's life, like they've already been removed, the district tries to keep the child at their homes, at their like original home school.
That's actually pretty nice. And
they try their best.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like you're changing. I mean, I guess you're changing the bus system, but it's not like you're changing really anything in the classroom besides the fact that the child has been totally like flipped over and their life is in a brand new home, brand new people, and their mom and dad are just MIA.
So that we do see at school, where I do have to call CPS, right?
Okay.
Due to concerns of, most of the time it's like physical abuse or sexual and even neglect sometimes.
So what is, at least for, I won't even touch sexual, but what are like the thresholds for like abuse? Like obviously when we were growing up, like spankings and all that stuff, that was like free range. However, nowadays it's a little bit different. Like when I talk to Kara, like no matter what the kid, let's put it this way, when the kid says something like something bad, like I hate everyone, I'm gonna kill Brian or something, like immediately there's protocols, everything in place, which there should be, but like she's dealing with like kindergartners, you're dealing with like first grade, second graders. However, there was a third grader who shot a woman in Virginia.
Yeah, the teacher.
Yeah.
6 years old.
So I that's why the protocols, I guess, are in place. But I'm trying to grade my train of thought. I lost it. What I was gonna say is, sorry, this is all gonna get cut out, but I was going somewhere. I gotta look at the questions because I'm completely
okay.
So let's just jump to, what do you see as a common encounter or issues that you see with kids? Disruption in family, maybe like poverty, low income families, stuff like that. What do you think like is predominant, especially in DC?
So my school is also an outlier. So my school is predominantly Hispanic.
Okay.
And then we have like a few, like a sprinkle of a handful of kids who are African American. And it really depends. So with, Hispanic students, There's poverty issues, a lot of attachment issues. When I say attachment, it means that the child was separated, at some point from the family member, and then they come here and reconnect, and then there's no connection and dealing with all of that. Another thing I might see is just lack of involvement. Like parents are on, they're trying to just meet the basic needs. They're in survival mode, and education is not, it's like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Yeah,
we're at the bottom. We're like trying to meet that foundation, and the school is like up here. It doesn't align. And then with my other students, I was actually talking to Jonas about this, where it's really difficult when you notice generational trauma, right? Where it's like a cycle of just chaos, poverty. It's really complex, to be honest. Sometimes I'm like, I don't even know where to begin with how to help, because it's so much more than just me. Beyond me.
It's kind of like a vicious cycle for a lot of those people, right? Where it's just like you say, it's a generational thing rather than a. So I remember what my train of thought. I don't know why I trailed off, but what is the point of calling basically child services when there is physical abuse? Like, what are the requirements for that?
So a lot of the time now, it's when someone notices a mark or something, or a child might say something. What they say in DC, when in doubt, just call. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm sure it's beyond DC. Like, I'm not there to investigate. Sometimes I will ask questions here and there. Like, if I'm unsure of a mark, and I'll ask the kid, like, what happened. Sometimes it's like very consistent. Like, I scrape myself in the concrete. But at the end of the day, the goal is for CPS to support the family. Like, I'm never calling in hopes that they have a child removed. I would never wish that upon anyone unless it's necessary. But the hope is that CPS will go and support the family with whatever they need to mitigate the situation, to prevent it from happening.
Yeah. Because I was talking maybe a couple episodes ago, one of the girls I interviewed said they had child services called like 3 or 4 times, or maybe Jonas, even more.
We listened to we it. We went on an anniversary trip, and on the way back, we listened to it, and we were dead silent for a whole hour. Listening to it. It was difficult. It was really difficult to hear.
It just reminded me of like if you see bruises, you land on your elbows, you land on your knees, but like bruises like in between like your wrist and your elbow, you don't usually see those because you don't land on those. And like, if you see something like that, it's kind of like, oh, I didn't fall down the stairs. It was like I was slammed against the wall by my dad or my mom or my step-parents.
A lot of it, and there are situations where you just have a gut feeling like something is wrong in the home, and they don't pick it up, like they just breeze by it. Not breeze, but they've said they've done their work, and you can only do so much, but you keep calling, in hopes that something does happen.
And with the kind of vicious cycle we were talking about, obviously they're trying to support the families, stuff like this, but do a lot of them just see it as like daycare, like free daycare that the public school is providing, and like you keep calling, but
no, it does feel like that sometimes, where I come home and I'm like, I'm just taking care of other people's kids all day. I see them more than the parents.
And you mentioned your most of your students are Latino. Is there any issues with like immigration or stuff like that you have to deal with?
No, not so much. Maybe when I was working with middle school, those kids, a lot of them did migrate here. And there were, yeah, I don't think any of my current kids are, we call them newcomers. I
Newcomers.
don't know
That's
how,
such a
I
cool
don't
word,
know how
though.
I don't know how I feel about it, but we call our kids like there's like a, like an ESOL class and we call them,
What?
instead
What?
of ESOL, it's newcomer.
Oh yeah.
And so we don't have so many, I don't have many of those in my caseload, but,
Okay.
no,
We
not so
we
much.
talked about all the negative stuff. Do you
Mhm.
obviously I know you're not allowed to use names, blah 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 blah
Yeah.
blah. But do you have any success stories that you want to kind of? I know you've been there for a little bit. You've got to have
Mhm.
one or two, right?
Yeah, yeah, I do. And when it happens, it's such a beautiful experience and it's such an honor to experience and go through that with someone. Um More recently, I've had this one student, my God, last year was a terror. It was just so bad. And, the person, she just kept just running out the classroom. And I just like couldn't. And I hate when kids run. I feel so out of control because I'm like an idiot, running in the hallway. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
just,
yeah.
just like, can't. It's
It's
like
like you're
one
adding
thing.
to it, but you have to
Yeah.
run after them.
Yeah, I just like I can't hate it, but that was their thing. As soon as they got upset, walk out the classroom, start cursing. I don't mind the cursing. You can call me a bit, I don't care. But it was the running, and I said, you know what? I really got to lean into this child. Like I need to be with them like glue and be unconditionally like just supportive no matter what and validate, validate, validate. And she would come and hang out with me for breakfast. I let her mom know like she can come to school early, like we can hang out. And so I did a lot. I leaned into this child so much, and then this year was such a success. It was, I mean, a whole different experience, and it was beautiful. It was truly beautiful, and I think the child also felt the connection where, she once said, "Are you going to remember me?" And I'm like, in my mind, like, how could I ever forget? Because not only did I see the growth, but I learned so much about myself as well. And that's just one. But there's been times where I've had like even middle schoolers come back, now high schoolers. I had one that was like, Miss Castillo, you were right. Everything you said, you were right. So it's really beautiful. Even now when I'll like, because it's in, a very kids there, it's DC. Everyone's walking. So if like I'm on the lunch break or something, like I'll bump into somebody. And it's beautiful. Like I think at the end of this year, I actually did cry. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
to see
I
people
think
grow is amazing.
it's
And not
is
that
it
I take like ownership, but I'm part of the process.
yeah. No, of course. I mean, I had an aide when I was in I mean, I wasn't like a crazy student. I was just crazy, like not paying attention. So I had
Hmm.
like an aide or a IEP type person. But like I can't even imagine like you've got the people that are they still need help, but the one you describe, it's probably so much more rewarding because there's such
Hmm.
a hard contrast between like you've got somebody like you said running around cussing you
Yeah.
out throwing chairs and then like on the opposite side like they don't even look like the person that they were when you met them and that must
Yeah.
just feel like I don't know like
Insane. It's a
yeah.
really insane, it's this very special feeling that, yeah, unless you're in it,
Yeah,
you
because
know.
you probably thought where like when you first met this girl, I like I don't I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. And if
Yeah.
future you would have told you like she's gonna be like this after a while, you would have been like, no way. Like this
Yeah.
girl. But
Yeah.
from my experience, when you do that, like you slowly change your uh I guess what you think your capabilities are.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
like
Mhm.
running a marathon, like or running a half marathon. Then you think,
Yeah.
okay, I can run 13 miles, I can run
Mhm.
15.
Mhm. She gave me that whole process, gave me so much confidence in my abilities. And yeah, what I'm capable of, I'm like, okay, bring it. And they sure brought it. But this year was still crazy. This past year.
No, that's awesome. And you say you
Hmm.
have like 12 people in your caseload. Is that about like
Like
what you kind of deal with?
15, but of those 15, I have the high flyers. I had this past year, I had maybe 3 high flyers, and I'm talking about like I'm seeing them 5 times a day in
Five
addition.
times. Wow. That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's very intense.
Wow.
Mhm.
That is surprising. I'm going to tell Kara that. She's going to be like 5 times. Because I mean, she,
Yeah,
like her first
specialized.
year, I can even remember, I'm not going to say the kid's name, but her first year of teaching in like Fairfax County Public Schools, like they just had all the kids leave the room. Like this kid was
Yeah,
just having a breakdown.
yeah.
And like I would just hear stories every day, just like any other teacher's husband or wife, whoever.
So, yeah,
And it's just like you were like it's burned into your brain. Like it's sad that I can remember her kids'
the
students'
name.
names. So you know it's bad. And Jonas is probably the same way, right? He
Mhm,
could probably
mhm.
rattle off like 20
The
names.
name. Yeah, it's crazy. I working in a school, names mean hit a little different. The other day, I was watching TV and I had in the show there was a name of one of my high flyers, and I was like, oh God, like I had some sort of feeling. And like when I hear names, or like when I think of like names to name my child, I'm like, I would never name them like a Kevin.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
Kevins are terrible.
That is the what about Liam's? Do you have any Liam's?
I do.
Uh,
I would
yeah,
not
but
name my child Leo.
that's funny. I feel like you had this conversation with Kara though too, just because
Hmm.
like you guys
Hmm.
have the same issues where you have like those kids that you're like, oh, I don't want them to have any memory of it, so I'm gonna name them the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't. This is just thought popped in my head. What is like your number one way to cool down the situation with some of the kids? Obviously, it's different for different kids, but like, what's your go-to tool?
Games. Oof. Games.
Maybe you can give me a tip.
Listen, a lot of the time I give them space. So I'm like, when you're ready, I'm here, and I'll like pretend to be fiddling with something. I'm like, you need to let me know when you're ready. And then we'll play a game. I'll play Uno, the big one. I also have a sand tray, which is a hit or miss. It's great, but it's also so messy.
You
Um,
got to get that kinetic sand. Is it kinetic?
no, because the kinetic sand doesn't have the same therapeutic power as this.
Oh yes.
It has to,
I got you. It's got to
slide
fall
out.
through the sands.
Yeah. Or bop it. I have so many toys
Bop
in my
it.
office. And my office is a playroom.
You've got bop it. The kids say, "What
Mhm.
is this?"
They love it.
Uh, so I guess with your experience, and obviously I didn't mention like that you have been through like, and this sounds bad, but I think it's a great experience that you've been through 8 jobs and you've been doing this for almost 11 or 12. Is it 12 years?
I graduated college in 2011. So yeah,
It's about 12, yeah.
12 years. Hmm.
And you've worked at 8 different places, some that specifically dealt with like Hispanic, and just because obviously you speak Spanish, but you have so much experience from different levels as well. Like, didn't you also deal with older people as well at one point?
Um, so when I first came out of school, I was at a residential home, and
Hmm.
they were young adults,
Okay.
and with severe mental health issues like
Okay.
schizophrenia.
So you and like people who deal with social work, people who nurses, social work, and developmental people are just like I think I don't know how those people do it. Like maybe it's a personality type, but it's
Mhm.
something that I think would drive me crazy because I have patience, but I think I would just be so like sad every day.
I think it takes a certain type of person. I always think that everyone has like a certain gift that you're born with. um, because it's not for everyone. Like Jonas is what, when I tell him the stories, like, what? Like, you just don't
Yo,
let
that's
her
deep.
disrespect you like that? I'm like, What? They're just angry. I'm going to teach
Yeah.
them, like you got to learn how to eat baby steps.
So speaking on that, how do you think you balance your caseload with your personal life? Like how do you detach yourself? Like what's your perspective on that? Like when you come home,
I'm
obviously you
really,
talk about stuff, but
yeah, I'm really good about compartmentalizing, if you can barely say the word, but like it just like goes away. I don't think about it when I come home. I think I've just been doing it for so long. Like I've accepted like I can only do what I can do during the day. It's not going to like I can't let it impact my life because if I'm not in a good space, then I won't be in a good space to help everyone else.
Mhm,
So I'm good about just shutting it off
mhm.
unless unless it has to do with suicide, then like that's like the one thing for me where I'm always on edge and I'll think about it when I come home just because it's so delicate. But other than that, I'm good about shutting it off.
That's good.
Mhm.
Um, is there any like policy? I saw a couple policies come up, but I think it was dealing because there's a couple policies coming up with social work, but when I read into it, it was dealing with something specifically, I think talking about like trying to make more social workers like the requirement for the master's program. But is there any policies specifically with DC public schools towards the children that you believe are particularly effective in helping students? Anything like that? Yeah, like any initiatives, anything like trying to help promote like I don't know what states it is, but like free lunch. Like would free
Yeah.
lunch go a long way like for all the kids or maybe like free extended care, early day not daycare,
Mhm.
but you know what I mean, stuff like that. Is there anything that you think would have a huge boost that you would see like if funding was pushed toward it for DC, at least for the
I
school
think
system?
tutoring services would be amazing. And maybe my school, for example, they don't have so many extracurriculars,
Hmm.
active extracurricular curricular activities. So that would be nice. But yeah, we only have like maybe two sports a semester and very limited. So the kids, it's nice to be able to do stuff after school and help the kids feel good about or find what they're good at. Um, yeah.
Okay. So a big thing that I feel like anyone our age has kind of slowly picked up, and probably everyone since the dawn of time, but you've been doing this for like 10, 12 years. What are some of the big takes from it that you had to learn the hard way? Like just take 10 seconds, take a breath, or that like maybe just like you said, one of the things I've already learned from you, which I not learned, but heard from you is that like there's no really bad kid. Like
Mhm.
what's a big take that you've had in the last 10 or 12 years that you learned?
It's never about me. So, and when, there's chaos, crisis going on, like it's never personal. And I think that that's maybe why I'm able to also shut it off or like just, move on from things so quickly when I come home. But it's never about me. When someone's having a bad day, when someone is yelling, cursing me out, throwing stuff, it's never about something I did necessarily. It's their own background, their trauma. And that helps me stay cool in the moment because I feel very present.
Mhm,
And I firmly believe everyone means well. And so, like I said, earlier, where no child is a bad child. I've
mhm.
never, even my toughest ones, like even like the one I mentioned earlier, there were days where I'm like, I just can't do this. I cannot do it. I can't do it anymore. But knowing that maybe I could make a difference and be that change and like that support for that child definitely keeps me going.
Mhm.
Did I answer your
So
question?
no, it does. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm in and out of my train of thought because when you were talking, I was thinking, ha- have you ever had have you had any really bad interactions with parents trying to like talk to them, have like conferences where it's just like it's different when a child is screaming at you, but when a grown adult is yelling at you?
Hmm.
in that case? Do you still try to not take it personally? Because
Yeah.
you're with this kid like maybe even close to as much time as the adult is. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Has that happened? I assume yes.
I haven't been cursed out by a parent. I'm very soft in my approach, and gentle, and I come from a place of curiosity. I really try to like ask a lot of questions rather than assert my judgment or like provide my recommendation, or even to have recommendations that I'm like trying to drop here and there.
Hmm.
So I really try and get to know the parent and just be curious. Like, tell me, like, how is he at home? Or have you seen this behavior? If you have, like, what do you do? How can you help us? Right. And come,
Hmm.
like, we are a team. I always say that, like, we are here to work together. I am on your team. Let me know how I can, help. And again, it's also if a parent is having a strong reaction. Again, it's not me. It's me.
Yeah.
Something's going on.
So I have a funny question to ask you. How, and I'm pulling the microphone down just so my question gets across. Have you ever used your nomenclature or choice of words that you use in work with Jonas when you get home?
No,
No, no.
no. I try not to. No. The other day I was saying, it was dropping the word, everyone's using gaslight nowadays, gaslighting. And he's like, oh, stop. You're just using your therapy words. So, like, I'm sure it's annoying. Like, no one wants to be talked at. Like, not that I'm not being genuine when I'm with other people, but like, it's a switch, and I don't want my partner Jonas, to feel like I'm therapizing whatever he
Yeah,
uses. I think
yeah.
no.
Because Carol will, she won't like treat me like a child, but she'll use the same like guys, like buddy, like the
Yeah,
same word she would use for a group of her students. And I'm like, I'm your partner. I'm not your buddy. Well, I am your buddy, but I'm more than your buddy.
but still, yeah.
But yeah, it's just funny. I don't take any offense to it. I just think it's funny, and I'm like, I have to correct you because if you think of me as like your buddy, then I'm your roommate, not your
Yeah.
husband and your.
Another thing I try to be very careful with is, diagnosing anyone. Like,
Mm,
you will rarely hear me talk about like, oh, maybe you have anxiety. No. Even if I might think it in my brain, like I would never say it out
mhm. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like
loud.
you wouldn't want to put that on someone, and yeah. Okay, my last question. What is something that your parents did that you'd like to pass on to your kids or the next generation? And what's something maybe new you would do, or maybe something that you would kind of steer from that your parents did?
Yeah, so what I hope to pass on is the gift of language. So I know Spanish because my parents only spoke Spanish when I was growing up. I learned English at school. And so speaking Spanish has been the greatest gift for me. And I enjoy being able to give back to my community. And I'm able to do that because I can connect with them through language. And so my goal, who knows what it will turn out to be, but my goal is to only speak Spanish to my child. Um, we'll see how it goes because I'm fluent, but I don't really, to speak Spanish every day at home is a little different.
Yeah, I know Jonas speaks it. Does he speak
Uh-huh.
it well?
Yes, he does. And I think it could be beneficial for him too, because then he'll practice and feel more comfortable. He speaks very well. So it's definitely possible, like he'll understand me. I don't have to keep flipping back and forth. Um, so hopefully, fingers
Yeah,
crossed, we can
maybe
do it.
your son or daughter will mispronounce watermelon. I think that's right.
Yeah, Hendune.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Another thing,
yeah.
another thing that I do hope to pass on is family, the importance of family. My dad is one of 11, and so we have a big family, and we hang out often. I grew up with a bunch of cousins, and it was beautiful. And Jonas is very close to his family too, and that's what I enjoy about us, like being able to share that with one another. And so I hope to keep that strong connection. with my kids and family, future family.
And obviously you said 11, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me just and that's one family. That's like one woman, one grandma, one grandfather. Okay.
Yeah.
That's like TikTok worthy, you know what I mean? Like 11 kids. And then they have the picture and then they have it like sloped down with the age differences. That's a lot. Obviously, I know it's a different time, but that's crazy.
Yeah, they lived on a farm, so they're a farm family.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's usually what it's like. It's either
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to stereotype, but Mormon,
Mm-hmm.
farm workers, Catholic, Italian, Irish, and that's usually like how it goes. Like you won't see. I've never seen anything out of that bulb right there. Like unless you were trying to go for a reality show. Is there anything you'd want to do differently or new?
Differently, I don't think it's like anything crazy, but maybe more emphasis on academics in school. My parents always, so they, I mentioned this earlier, they didn't go to college. But it was always an expectation, like you're going. But there was not so much like a emphasis at home where it's like you need to study so you can get there, or even just joining extracurriculars. Like I think it's beautiful to be able to do something, like have a hobby or something, be good at. Like Jonas has soccer, and all of people in network you meet through that. And I think it's so cool. I don't have anything necessarily. And so probably pushing a sport or something, you have to do some extracurricular, and then sitting down and studying, like having that practice, I think is really important.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you don't have anything? What about crocheting or I don't know, scrapbooking?
No.
No.
I mean, now I like
travel.
to, yeah, well, yeah, but uh, now I'll work out, but that's about it.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a hobby, but I do enjoy running.
That's definitely a hobby. Well, it's a hobby.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's debatable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for taking your free time out of your lovely night with your lovely husband.
Mm-hmm. No, he said hi, by the way.
Is he in the room?
No, he's out.
Of course he is. Probably 30 minutes late to whatever meeting he had to go to.
He was. He was.
Well, thank you again. And tell Jonas I said hello as well. You don't need to tell me thank you. You're doing me a huge favor. But yeah, and have a good night.
Thank you.
If you like this week's episode of People More Interesting Than Me, please follow me on Apple Podcasts so you won't miss out on more episodes like these.